Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, Babaji Krishna, Jesus Christ, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Sri Yukteswar, my beloved Gurudev Paramhansa Yogananda, beloved friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, saints and sages of all religions, I humbly bow to you all. Thank you for raising the vibrations of this class. Thank you for bringing us understanding and salvation. Om Shanti. So what page were we on? 288. First paragraph. We were talking about the fallen yogis, fallen in different ways, only in the sense that
Page 289. Page 289.
Okay, 289. Huh? So there was this story of Vedvyas, who actually downloaded the Gita, who actually wrote the Bhagavad Gita. So he had a son called Sukdev. And while Sukdev was in the womb, Vedvyas started, energetically transmitting knowledge to Sukdev. And when Sukdev was born, he was, of course, totally wise from the womb. So around 7 years old, it's time for him to start his studies. And he was setting off in search of his guru. So Vedvyas, being the father, said, why don't you, he's running after the son, saying, why don't you stay here and learn with me as your guru? And Sukdev says that, stay away from me, you kind of stink of Maya, because you are still looking at me as your son. And there is that attachment in you just because I happen to be born to you and my mother. The point is, this Sukdev is so wise that he knows that actually we don't belong to anybody. In this life, if we have chosen certain parents, it is because they are soul companions who are here to teach us something, and we are there to teach them something karmically. In the next life, they may not be our parents. So a yogi does not get caught in the particular, the particular life that we are in. They look at it as a huge sweep, that the same soul, which is part of God, is reincarnating, thousands of times in a different body. So we are all part of source, and we all take a limited body and come down from time to time. And the relationships on earth are not real at all, because we are all anyway part of that one source. So there's no point in being attached to any particular, so this is my cat and this is my daughter. No, they are souls on their own journey, just as I am a soul on my journey. What I need to understand is, what is she come to teach me, and what have I to give her in terms of soul growth? What is the life lesson that we are learning from each other? And that's it. So that, of course, only a very advanced yogi will look at life like that. And that is why they are able to remain detached. Detached because they are always connected to the big picture. They don't get caught in the drama of Maya.
Urmi, I have a question.
Yeah.
No, so one is learning from each other. Isn't there any place for love?
Love is learning. Now, the biggest lesson here is self-love. If you don't know how to love yourself, you don't know how to love others. The highest vibration that we are all trying to attain is the vibration of love, not attachment. See love as distinct from attachment. That comes from many, many things like ego necessity. Oh, I am so afraid of being alone. So I want my husband, I want my wife, I want my kids. I want to remain stuck. That if you go deeper, you will see if that love, so-called love, I give it a big question mark. What is it really? The point to learn is how to love yourself so that you are complete, and only then can you love others with a very vast compassion, which is the real love. What we have here, if you behave, I love you. If you don't behave, get out of my house. If you do what I expect of you, I love you. If you are rude to me tomorrow, I will kick you out. That is not love. Okay, that is transaction. You give me something, you meet some need in me. I am willing to, go the extra mile for you. You dig deeper into any family love and you will find that. Now we have to be honest with ourselves. And why do we become attached? It is simply because we are still thinking we are separate. And so we are disconnected from source. And then there is the fear, oh my God, I will be alone. Nobody will be there to look after me when I'm dying. All those things. That is why people in earlier days, at least, used to prefer sons, because the daughter will go away. Who is going to put fire on my face when I die? And I will educate my son. I will look after him only with the expectation that he will be there for me when I am old and infirm. That is certainly not love. Okay. So love is something of a very high vibration. If we would really understand love, we would still love somebody if they murdered somebody. Most of the times you will see that, okay, in a family, I am an alcoholic or I have murdered somebody, then the parents will immediately cut off the children. Or if you're not working and you are wasting my money, you are disobeying me, not so much love left anymore, right? But if it was real love, that love would not change regardless of what is happening in the other person's space or how that other person is treating me, which again doesn't mean that we become doormats. In fact, if I have the strength to say no and put up my boundaries, I can still continue to love that person. I don't need to love the battamizi, as it were, because I love myself. I will not be treated badly. So I will put up my boundaries. I will say no. I will not become a doormat, but that does not mean I have stopped loving the person. I will still try to do whatever is possible for that person so that they get out of the rut they are in or whatever the trouble is. So that is the kind of love. Vyasa then sent the son to another great yogi who would be able to give him enlightenment. But that subject is not germane to the present discussion. I think we read up to here. One's spiritual attainments in past lives are enduringly retained in the astral brain. Like seeds, they sprout when the conditions are right. What triggers a right condition may be almost anything. Sri Ramakrishna, we read this also. The great master who lived in Bengal, India in the 19th century had his first spiritual awakening as a child on beholding a flock of crane flying in graceful beauty against a gray sky. So if, say, suppose you have meditated in this life, so that memory does not go. We actually carry it as seeds of good karma. shall we say. We have bad karma and we have good karma. We are carrying all those things from past lives. And so in this life, some people will just need a little bit of a trigger to remember meditations they have done before. So they just take off from where they had reached in the earlier life. So some people have an easier time on the spiritual path. It really means that they have meditated before. They have done a lot of God searching before. And some people may not be, maybe a little further away on the path, but everyone is ultimately on the same path. The power of former yoga practice is sufficient to impel, as it were, the reborn yogi on his upward path. So if you have formerly actually done this kind of meditation, you will naturally be drawn to it again, and you will take it up again. That's why we get drawn to certain practices and certain paths. It is no coincidence that we are on this path. That means there have been past lives where we have progressed to a certain extent on this very path. Even one who seeks only a theoretical understanding of yoga is more highly advanced than one who is dedicated to outward scriptural rites, Vedic rites. So what is yoga? Yoga is actually union with source, right? So yoga is going inside. So all our, what would you say, all our machinery or whatever we need to reach God is already inside us. So if you are interested in yoga and you are studying, yoga in the sense of union with God, you are more advanced than if you just do some rituals and things which a Pandit may tell you, do this now without any understanding of your own. You are simply going through the motions somebody else has told you, but there is no internal shift, there is no internal understanding. So that's why Swamiji is saying even one who seeks only a theoretical understanding of yoga is more highly advanced than one who is dedicated to outward scriptural rites. So it is, what is spirituality? Spirituality is all about going inward, not outward. Okay. Paramahansa Yogananda stated that the last few words of this stanza can be translated alternatively to mean than someone who is dedicated to merely reciting the Vedic word of Brahman, the sacred Om. People of spiritual insight know that the main purpose of performing rituals and even of chanting Om is symbolic. It can exert a kind of power that attracts certain beneficial results. It cannot possibly, however, produce freedom from karma, being itself a karmic act that involves the doer in a variety of subsequent reactions, none of which can extricate the ego from bondage to the limitations of individuality. So even if we are chanting Om and we are doing Vedic rites and all, till we do not transform from inside, nothing is going to happen. So our final salvation or our final connection with source will only come when we shift from inside with understanding, with insight, not, mechanically doing some rituals, not mechanically chanting Om. Of course, when you chant Om, the vibration is raised, but to a certain degree. For actual union with God, we actually have to become godlike. So when we have to become godlike, we have to keep shifting inside. We have to keep, after a certain point, the positive ego is no longer needed, right? I keep saying we need the ego to even have the drive to reach God. That comes from ego. But after a point when we have done sufficient inner work, it is the time to drop individuality. It is the time to drop the ego and merge with source, And that is what yoga is. Infinitely more important than chanting Om is it to listen to Om in the right ear in meditation, closing the trachea of the ears with the thumbs, the elbows resting lightly on a crosspiece of wood. Om is chanted mentally at the point between the eyebrows, while the mind concentrates on the sounds appearing in the right ear. One should concentrate on only one sound at a time. The very concentration on that sound will attune one to subtler levels of sound until one hears the cosmic vibration. This yoga technique should be learned personally in its various ramifications from a true teacher. It is an important part of the path taught by Paramhansa Yogananda. So he's talking about the Om technique, which all of us know. Rather than chanting Om outwardly, we need to listen for it inside to the vibrations and go deeper and deeper into the vibration. Diligently following his chosen path and cleansing himself thereby of all sin, that is karmic debts, the yogi, after many births, attains perfection and enters at last into the supreme beatitude. So it's only after shifting, changing, transforming inside after many, many births that the yogi finally can merge with source, and that is samadhi. That is nirvikalpa samadhi, when you are able to merge with source. Lahiri Mahashaya, who first introduced Kriya Yoga to the world in modern times, explains this passage also in an esoteric sense. When a man exhales and cannot inhale again, he dies. Later, when he is reborn in a new body, he inhales to make his first cry and thus resumes living in this world. So it's an unbroken chain. Like Lahiri Mahashaya said, you went out of the body with the last exhale, then you entered another body with the inhale. You are just changing bodies. Similarly, when a meditating yogi goes breathless, the breath is forcibly drawn out of his body. This condition is a kind of partial death, reminiscent of something Saint Paul said in the Bible, I die daily. That is, breathlessness is, however, deathlessness according to Yogananda, but it is like a death when we go breathless. Death from the ego, connection with the soul. Right? So it is like a partial death, reminiscent of something Saint Paul said in the Bible, I die daily. In this sense, when the yogi returns to outward consciousness and resumes breathing, his first act is to inhale again. Thus, during meditation in his present body, he undergoes in a very real sense the process of death and rebirth. In this way, he can fulfill, even in one lifetime, the promise of Krishna that will hasten his evolution, a process which normally requires many births and can complete the long work even in his present body. So I keep talking about the story of the Buddha. He sat under the Bodhi tree, and over the 40 days or whatever he sat, he actually regressed back to 40,000 past lives. Dropped, dropped all the karma and came out enlightened in that one body, in that lifetime. So that means he has already done this work, a huge amount from before, and he simply finished it in this lifetime that we know him as Buddha. There is a more superficial but very helpful practice that can be conjoined to the breathing process. The time to affirm or embrace a new state of consciousness is after a deep inhalation. The time to expel from the body any unwanted thought or habit is while deliberately exhaling, blowing that thought out of one's nature, so to speak. Habits, Yogananda used to say, can be changed in a day. They are simply the result of concentrated energy. Direct that energy in a new way, and the habit you want to overcome can be dispelled in an instant. The breath is the best medium. Now, dispelled in an instant, of course, easier said than done. We all know what kinds of habits we have and not very easy to change. But that is because I think we haven't hit rock bottom. The desire to change is not yet there. So there is a story, of an alcoholic who used to sit and meditate with the bottle in his hand because he couldn't stop drinking. But he's trying to get out of it. And he used to sit and meditate with that bottle in his hand. And he used to take swigs and continue meditating. One fine day, he got so disgusted, he simply threw the bottle away. Look at the energy that it takes. That means he was sick and tired. He threw it away, and thereafter he never touched it again. So habits are difficult to break. But if we suffer enough as a result of that habit, it may compel us to leave it. And then that energy is very great and we don't do it anymore. The breath is the best medium when accompanied by strong mental affirmation for bringing into one's nature the thoughts and qualities one wants, and for ridding oneself of those which one wants to dismiss. So sure, breathing and affirmation and all these things really help in getting us out of a certain mindset. In this case too, such exhaling breath can be a little death of the discarded quality anyway. It's like, I am ending one bad habit. It's like a death of the bad habit. And each inhalation can be a little rebirth into some new quality one wants to adopt. The yogi is greater than those ascetics who strive for spiritual perfection through discipline of the body, greater even than those who follow the path of wisdom, jnana yoga, or of action, karma yoga. Become, O Arjuna, a yogi. So Krishna said that if you are a yogi, you are more advanced than people who try to reach God through physical, that is hatha yoga, or through jnana yoga, or through service, which is karma yoga. Why? Because the yogi in all this, jnana yoga is understanding the scriptures. You're using your brain, your rational faculty to understand and slowly eliminate stuff. It is possible to reach salvation through simply jnana yoga, through understanding. It is possible to reach God only through service, that is karma yoga. It is possible to reach God only through physical means, through say hatha yoga. But what is unique to the yogi has a real individual experience of God. All the others are external. When we do meditation, we actually are experiencing God. So that is why Krishna in the Mahabharata tells Arjuna, "O Arjuna, be thou a yogi." The goal of physical discipline is twofold: to bring the body under the control of one's will and to rechannel the energy from the body so that the energy can serve a higher purpose. In Christian monasteries, self-flagellation, whipping one's back even to the point where blood was drawn, used to be a common practice. It is no longer allowed. The idea behind it was to punish the body for its carnal desires and thereby to discourage them from becoming too insistent in their efforts to sway the mind, as if the mind were ruled by the body instead of the other way around, instead of the reverse, actually. So this body flagellation is of no use, because the things which are coming in, which creates disturbance in the body, are of the mind. So punishing the body is not going to get you very, very far. As Yogananda in challenge to the thought that the body causes nervousness, said, hold up a piece of paper in your hand. Will it shake on its own? Never. To shake it, you yourself must do the shaking. The mind is influenced by physical awareness, but its response always comes from the awareness itself. Carnal desires originate not in the body, even though they obviously are influenced by the body. The origin of temptation, however, is in the mind. Nothing inert can influence the mind without the mind's willing cooperation, whether consciously or subconsciously. Thus, the Roman Catholic Church was right to rule against self-flagellation. It is an indirect and fundamentally unsound spiritual practice. So why do we call, see, the causal level, the astral level, the physical level? The causal level, the level of thought, that causes things in the emotional body, that causes things in the physical body. So it is the mind which is originating. So when we say thoughts are things, exactly that is what it is. Whatever we are thinking 24/7 is what will manifest in our lives. And if we are very sensitive about our thoughts, what we are thinking, you will be astonished how whatever you thought is actually in your life right now, and how every day we are creating our own reality, which makes us very, very powerful. In India, the practice developed ages ago. Buddha encountered it in his own spiritual search to discipline the body for other purposes, to cause the energy by blocking its outward flow to reverse the flow inward. We mentioned this practice in the commentary following Gita 3.7. Certain ascetics, for example, practice holding one arm continuously aloft until the muscles wither away and the arm looks like skin and bones. It comes easily to modern people to ridicule such a practice. It does seem extreme to the point of fanaticism. Yet one wonders, could such practices have endured for thousands of years had they not shown some benefit? So all this yogic, posture, standing on one leg in the cold, in the Himalayas, or holding up one hand, these are penances, they say. So Swamiji is saying that, I mean, they wouldn't have survived if they didn't have some benefit at least. An American soldier after World War II was in India and happened to come across a sadhu seated with one shriveled arm raised high above his head. Hey there, called the soldier mockingly. Are you praying to God to drop fruit in your hand? Why don't you try it yourself, was the smiling reply. The American jokingly raised both arms to the sky. To his dismay, he found he couldn't take them down again. Please, sir, he cried, let me lower my arms. Why don't you finish what you started? Replied the other. What do you mean? Ask God to drop fruit into your hand, said the sadhu. The American, feeling very foolish, called out, Heavenly Father, please send me some fruit. Immediately, several fruits materialized in his hands. Later on, having lowered his arms and returned to his friends, he commented they were delicious. Physical self-discipline does bear fruit of a kind. Even self-flagellation cannot but have had some positive effect for it to have been practiced for so many centuries. What Krishna is saying in this stanza, however, is that disciplining the body is an indirect and incomplete way of freeing one's mind from body consciousness. So, some people, approach spiritual growth from, okay, I will become non-vegetarian, I will not eat this, I will eat this, I will exercise, I will be healthy. They, of course, they help in your spiritual growth by purifying the body. If your diet is right and your exercise is right, the body will be purified. But the point is, if instead of coming from the physical, we come from inside and try to change our thoughts and remain connected to source, the body will also automatically heal itself. And also automatically, when we have a very clean mental diet, the desire also to eat junk food and all that goes away automatically. So you don't have to force yourself, I will not drink, I will not smoke, I will not eat non-veg. It becomes, when we meditate and when we shift our mind, those things are a natural fallout. Okay. The same may be said of the other disciplines mentioned here, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, it should be mentioned, or inward Karma Yoga, is also used by Krishna in reference to the yoga of inner action, that is Kriya Yoga. So the meditation that we do is a kind of Karma Yoga, right? Because we are doing that very taking in of the breath is a Kriya, is a karma without hankering for the fruits of that action. So then karma is an action. What is kriya? Kriya is when you perform an action without looking for return. It is an unconditional action that you do. It's an offering of yourself to God. So that kind of karma does not, that kind of action does not get you more karma. It helps to release karma. So karma yoga, what is the inner karma yoga? Is the breath work that we learn in meditation. For deep meditation, it is necessary to rise above body consciousness by withdrawing the energy from the senses to the spine. Outward physical practices may be described as an attempt to bludgeon the body into surrendering its hold on the energy. So Kriya Yoga is a very subtle way of simply withdrawing the energy from the body into the center, rather than, contortions of a lot of physical exercise or hatha yoga or this, beating yourself up or standing in the cold, whatever yogis also do, which is to force the body into some kind of submission. But if we do Kriya Yoga, we are simply withdrawing the energy from the body in a very powerful and a very subtle way. Jnana Yoga tries again indirectly and for most people ineffectually to separate the mind from the body by mental discipline, the exercise of calm dispassion. This practice is helpful too and can be effective to some extent. It is indirect, however, insofar as it doesn't work on the energy itself to withdraw it from the body. So it is through mental understanding. So as I was saying, these all seem to be outward practices, okay? But Kriya Yoga is an inward practice. We use the example in the commentary following Gita 258 of a visit to the dentist. One can separate his concentration from the pain in his tooth while the dentist works on it. One way of doing so is to think of something else, to concentrate, for example, on solving some problem in one's life. Another way is to divert the mind by calmly watching the breath, following the technique mentioned earlier. Still another way is to tell oneself, I have lived for X number of years and have had many happy hours and days. What, by comparison, are these few minutes of pain? Thus, broadening his time base, the pain he endures for those minutes will seem insignificant. With sufficient exertion of willpower, will be easy to endure. Karma Yoga also is an indirect way of withdrawing the energy. By Nishkam Karma, renunciation of attachment to the fruits of action, one withdraws his energy from avid feeling towards anything outward and mentally centers his consciousness in the self. Now, this is a capital S self, that is the higher self. By meditating with the same attitude of offering the fruits of meditation up to God, one becomes less anxious and achieves even to that extent a degree of inner peace. None of these methods, however, nor any other among the countless religious methods in the world, for uplifting the mind is as effective as working directly on the energy itself. Once a person understands the true purpose of chanting to God, dancing in God, offering oblations to God, of beating drums during worship, reminiscent of the sound emitted by the lowest Muladhara chakra, of playing the flute at religious ceremonies, like the sound produced by Swadhisthana chakra, of plucking harp strings in reminder of the heavenly harp music in the Manipura chakra, of ringing bells like in the Anahata chakra. Once one understands the hidden reason for why these sounds actually inspire and uplift the mind, it is an inescapable conclusion that the mind is really uplifted by raising the energy in the spine, and that this effect can be produced even more effectively when one's concentration is directly applied to the energy itself. So instead of going outward, the gist of all this, which I read just now, is simply to concentrate on moving the energy in the right direction. Again, this is not to say that those outward practices are mere superstition. Dr. Lewis, Yogananda's first Kriya Yoga disciple in America, was a staid Bostonian. He cringed when a guru pounded on Indian drums during group chanting. Learn to enjoy it, said Yogananda. It helps to loosen the karma in the spine. He may have meant the samskaras, a term with which Dr. Lewis was less familiar. Alternatively, the guru may actually have said karma to pair his explanation with the disciples' understanding of Indian terms. What he meant was the drum beaten with a sensitive rhythm and not with the heavy pounding of a bongo drum or similar instrument, intended only to inflame the emotions, helps to release blockages in the lowest center so that the energy can flow upward in the spine. So I'm sure you have heard of, there are healing methods based on sound healing. You know, they have the bowls, little bowls with water at different levels, and the healer knows which sound to emit to open which chakra. So that is sound healing. It's a different kind. So certainly when sound is produced properly and is played with that kind of sensitivity, it can release blocks in different chakras. He who, full of faith and love, becomes fully absorbed in me, I regard as best attuned to my path to perfection. So Krishna is saying anyone with full of faith and love, when they become totally absorbed in Krishna, so basically almost one with Krishna, that is the person that reaches samadhi or salvation. What is that path? It is the balanced, moderate path which has been explained thus far in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna emphasizes faith not as blind belief, but as the certainty born of complete intuitive understanding and acceptance. He emphasizes love because without devotional love, the seeker cannot, as Swami Sri Yukteswar put it, set one foot before the other on the path to God. So a perfectly balanced human being is an enlightened human being. What are we trying to do with the Kriya Yoga practice? We are trying to bring the energy to the center of the body from the outside, not from this end of the pendulum, not from that end of the pendulum. No extremes on the path to God. Anything you will do in extreme, huge happiness, huge sorrow, peace and calm. This is the path to enlightenment, the middle path in everything, right? Any swing of the pendulum in one direction will bring the force to push it to the other, and we will simply go up and down constantly. And that is why the Gita says that a true yogi is one who is the same in times of extreme joy or extreme sorrow, which really doesn't mean that the yogi does not feel or is a robot or an automaton. It simply means that the yogi feels much deeper than the surface up and down. They are feeling the feelings of source, which is stillness and depth, rather than shallow up and down. So balance is something which is to be striven for. Balance between the right side and the left side of the brain, balance between our masculine side and our feminine side, balance in all the chakras, the right amount of energy, not too much, not too little. So somebody who is perfectly balanced in every sense is the enlightened master, basically. So Krishna emphasizes faith not as blind belief, but as a certainty born of complete intuitive understanding and acceptance. So when we know how to meditate deeply and we know how to connect with source, faith will automatically develop because you have direct experience. It is not that somebody has told you that this is what happens and therefore that is belief. I can believe somebody I trust. Okay, maybe it happens like that. But I don't know. Till I don't know, that complete faith will not come. And that can only happen when you have your own experiences of God in meditation. Personal spirituality is a very, very individual, personal connection with source. And nobody can tell you that. You have to discover it for yourself. And that is what we are working at with our meditative practices. So Krishna says it's faith, not as blind belief, but that born of complete intuitive understanding and acceptance. So what are we doing when we bring up the energy to the third eye? We are going beyond the intellect. We are developing our intuition. What is intuition? Intuition is a deep knowing of the truth. So that deep knowing, once it comes, automatically true faith will come. Okay. So Krishna emphasizes love because without devotional love, the seeker cannot, as Swami Sri Yukteswar put, set one foot before the other on the path to God. So love, as I was just telling Jamuna, is something we are striving for. Without true love, which actually is compassion, okay? So without love in the heart, without opening the heart chakra, just perfect technique and dry intellectual understanding will not take us to God. We need the feeling quality also. So therefore we say, open your heart chakra, open up. If you are going towards God, you will get there much faster if you have devotion rather than perfect technique and intellectual understanding. Because what is Satchidananda? Satchidananda, the quality, existence, consciousness, bliss. It has a feeling quality to it. It is not cold. It is not automaton-like. Okay. So that feeling of devotion is very, very important. Raja Yoga is not a separate path to God. Other forms of yoga and other religious disciplines may rightly be spoken of, as Yogananda did, as bypaths or as subsidiary streams contributing to the mighty river of energy which flows up the spine to the brain.
Gurmeet, one question. So for opening up the heart, I mean, other than what we know in terms of meditation, are there any other techniques which help open the heart?
Well, technique is when you are doing your kriya, when you're sitting in silence, you can focus on the heart chakra. awareness in the heart chakra. If you keep your gaze here, you can always, the more energy you will bring here, the more you will be able to open it, right? So if you want to open that feeling center, then while your gaze is as the spiritual eye, awareness should be on the heart chakra. Just send more and more energy, feel it opening up. So as we keep saying that the path that we follow, Raja Yoga is divided into two, okay? Hatha Yoga and Kriya Yoga. We are the Kriya Yoga. So Raja Yoga and Kriya, that meditative path, okay? So, but we say that it is not just meditation, it is an all-rounded path. So we read the books as part of intellectual understanding, Jnana Yoga. So we do service so that we understand the essence of Karma Yoga. We meditate to understand Kriya Yoga, right? And we do chanting, we say develop the love, the compassion as part of Bhakti Yoga. So we need to bring in all these parts to be a complete, well-rounded yogi. Jnana Yoga, or discriminative understanding, is essential for separating one's energy flow from outward involvement and for keeping it moving upward towards God. Now, all of it is actually bringing you inside. Bhakti Yoga, which is the exercise of intense devotion, is essential as a means of awakening and channeling all one's feelings upward. So what happens is, say there is a lot of feelings. It can easily, if I am not conscious of moving those feelings up to the higher chakras, if I allow them to go into the lower chakras, love will become what? Love will become jealousy, love will become codependency, love will become insecurity, all those things will happen. But if I want to keep the love pure and I want to keep the love of a divine order, if I want to raise the love to compassion, I have to have an energy which is always flowing upwards, because very easily love can, deteriorate into something quite different. Bhakti Yoga, which is the exercise of intense devotion, is essential as a means of awakening and channeling all one's feelings upwards. Otherwise, with jnana alone, one might be like the man living next door to a famous restaurant who never went into it for food because he craved only hot dogs and greasy fried potatoes. Okay, or jnana alone, maybe I have learnt up the menu and never went and ate actually. I know all about what is there, but I have never experienced that. Can also. Thus ends the 6th chapter called Dhyana Yoga, Union through Meditation, of the Upanishad of the Holy Bhagavad Gita, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna discussing yoga and the science of God realization. So we have about 4 minutes. Any questions?
Urmi, I have one.
Yeah.
Initially there was a discussion that if we are in a certain feeling and we want to get out of it.
Yeah.
What can you please repeat that part? How to go about it?
Right. What Master is saying, that if you have, say, a feeling of failure or whatever it is, when you exhale, imagine that you're releasing all feelings of failure out of the body. And when you breathe in the energy of success. And you can do it accompanied by a good affirmation. So release whatever you don't want in your body and bring in what you want. That was the exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
With me, I have a practice related question. So I feel a lot of aches and pains during the practice, during the meditation practice. Like I feel my body more compared to what I used to feel before. And a lot of time it creates a lot of discomfort during the meditation. And I was wondering if that happens to other people as well, or is it just me? Like, am I focusing too much on the body?
No, see, before it, I've never heard you say that. So
It has
something
been happening
coming.
recently.
It's phases, So right now, something is coming up for release. It'll go away after a few months.
Right.
Right. So you just keep on with the practice. It is obvious that before it was not happening. Now it is happening. So something deeper is coming up. So let it release.
Right.
I'm sure
Right.
others also have it. Sometimes you're totally off. Lots of things happen. Point of the matter is to understand it's a very, very huge lifelong process. So many things will happen. And to keep at it.
Thank you.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, then we end. So let's end with the prayer. Divine Mother, thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all thy children. Manifest thy healing power in all bodies, minds, and souls. So let's rub our hands together and send out the healing energy. Om. 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 Shanti, Shanti. Thank you and see you next week. Kriyaban.
Thanks, Urmi.
Try it.